Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the anthropometric and the ergonomics which is being used in the interior design industry. Anthropometry is the science of obtaining systematic dimensions or measurements of the human body. In particular, such anthropometric measurements have been used historically as a means to associate racial, cultural, and psychological attributes with physical properties. Specifically, anthropometric measurements involves the size, the structure, and the compositions of the human body. If we talk about the size, it is something like the height, the weight, the surface area, and the volume of the human body. And if we talk about the structure, it is something like the sitting versus the standing height, or your shoulder height, or some various heights and some various postures. Okay. Now let's see some slides through which we can understand anthropometric in a better way. So here are two figures in which first one is a person standing from the front and from the side. Second figure is in which a person is laying on the ground stretching the hands. So through which you can see the overall dimensions, how much space is required for that. Now this is the slide in which there is a person who is sitting on the chair and raising the hands. The second human figure is sitting and just showing the dimensions what is required for that particular figure. Now if you see, there will be a height from the floor till the knees, from hips till the head, from hips till the shoulder, from elbow till the hands. Now this is the figure. We have two figures. One is standing and raising the hands towards the front, and second figure is standing and raising the hands to the sides. Through these figures we can understand how much space is required for the overall activity. Now let's have a better look in this figure. This figure shows a person standing from the front and from the side, and he is raising the hands. And the second figure is in which a person is sitting and raising the hands towards the top and the legs towards the front. Through this figure we can understand that how much space is required for this particular activity, like from the front, from the side, etc. Now this figure shows a person who is sitting on the chair and working on the computer. So there's a dimension which is A. This shows the floor height till the knee height. There is a dimension which is B. So how much space is required, how much dimension is required for the chair for supporting the shoulders. Then there is dimension E, which shows how much space is required for the table height, that a person can comfortably use that table. The dimension D says how much should be the eye height, like what should be the eye level through which the person is able to see over the computer. And the angle C says what should be the angle and what should be the ideal dimension for working comfortably on the computer. Now this is the slide in which we can understand like how much space is required for sitting on the chair, and also when a person is sitting on an armchair and resting on the armchair. So you can see there's a dimension like how much space is required for the sitting, how much space is required for the stool on which he's putting his legs, how much height is required for that table, and how much height is required for that chair. So now as we have understood about the anthropometric, let me tell you about something. There are two types of dimensions. One is the static dimensions and another is the dynamic dimensions. So when we talk about a human figure, like the size and the structure of the human, like the overall height or the uh, shoulder height or something, that is called the anthropometrics. But when these dimensions are converted into a space, like any activity or something, like a person sitting on a chair, or person moving on a restaurant or something, like this is an activity, this is called ergonomics. So a good ergonomic design removes incompatibilities between the work and the worker and create the optimal work environment. Ergonomics draws on many disciplines to optimize the interaction between the work environment and the worker. At its core, workspace ergonomics is really about the building a better workplace. When jobs are designed to match the incompatibilities of people, it results in better work being produced and the better experience for the person doing it. Now let's have some slide to understand the ergonomics in a better way. Now this is a slide which shows what should be the height of the table, what should be the height of the display racks, what should be the height of the overhead cabinets, or if a person is standing and working on the racks and there is a person who is going from the back, then how much space is required for that. And if two persons are working over, the same for them also. Now this is the layout of a bar in which there is a person, number of persons sitting on the counter. Now this slide helps us to understand how much space is required if one person is sitting, how much is space required for the table, how much space is required if n numbers of persons are sitting over there, how much space is required if two rows of persons are there, and how much space is required if the person is standing on the opposite side of the table as well. Now this is a layout of a public toilet. Now here we can understand how much space is required for a urinal and how much space is required between two urinals, and how much space is required if a person is moving on a wheelchair, and how much space is required if a person is moving on a wheelchair and there is another person who is coming along, and also if a person is sitting on the WC, then how much space is required for that as well. This is the layout of a restaurant. Here is the first layout is the person who are sitting on a couch, and there is a table in the center. The second is a layout in which two persons are sitting opposite and there is a person walking from the mid. And third is a person who is serving the counter and there is another person who is walking from the back. From these layout we can understand how much space is required for the table, how much height is required for the table, how much space is required if a person is sitting on a couch, and how much space is required between two people sitting, and how much space is required if we need from the couch to couch, and how much space is required if a person is passing through the mid, and if a person is serving someone, how much space is required if a person is moving from the back as well. Now this is the layout of a booth sitting where two persons are sitting on the sofa and working on the tabletop. This will help us to understand how much space is required for the sitting and how much space is required for the tabletop, and how much space is required for the sofa. Now there is an activity zone and the circulation zone. They help us to understand how much space is required for the activity and for the circulation zone as well, where one person is moving and as well as when the two persons are moving from the back. Now this is the layout of a lunch counter. Here we can understand how much space is required for a serving counter and how much space is required if a person is sitting to have the lunch, and how much space is required to serve them as well. Through these slides we can understand if what should be the height of the counter, and how much space is required if a person is moving from the back, and how much space is required if two persons are moving from the back. I hope this short video might have helped you to understand the anthropometric and the ergonomics in a better way. This is a very short video to make you understand about how a space behave around us, how much space is required to do a particular kind of activity. The more video will be coming soon for the different modules. Thank you.